Welcome to iNN's Headlines and Beyond for Monday, April 9th, 2012. We've been working on some new stuff for you. This is why today's broadcast is coming to a little bit later on. We've got some more sources, we've got some more options. But let's start off right away. We're going to start off particularly with the information that's coming out. There seems to be now a real shift in the rhetoric that's coming out from both the left and the right surrounding the goings on in the election. So I will bring to you. I will play this part of our new feature now. This is a video from Bill O'Reilly. We can take a look at it here.
Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Howard Dean on the attack. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. Just call me Miss Cleo, psychic to the stars. Just minutes after I told you last night that the Democratic Party's strategy to re-elect President Obama will be to attack Mitt Romney and the Republican Party. Presto! A few minutes later, Howard Dean shows up on MSNBC and says this. The Republican Party is gay bashing, Muslim bashing, Latino bashing, immigrant bashing, women bashing every day. And so their young people are just not going to vote for Romney because they're not going to. They think insurance should actually pay for birth control. They don't. Their friends are gay, Muslim, Latino, and so forth and so on. They're sick of this stuff. Now, I want to thank Governor Dean for making me an oracle. It was nice of him to do it. So what we have here is the Democrats trying to put together a coalition of the aggrieved. Millions of Americans who feel they're not getting what they deserve. And of course, President Obama is here to help them. Now, that analysis is not a slap at the president. Unlike some of you, I don't think he's a bad guy. But I do think he's misguided philosophically, and because of that, is doing damage to the country's economic infrastructure. But I don't see him as Dr. Evil. In fact, I have never, ever seen Mr. Obama with a cat.
As you know, every diabolical scheme that I've hatched has been thwarted by Austin Powers.
Now, seriously, here's how the campaign is going to unfold.
So that's that video there, and we can compare it to a couple other videos that he has. Here we'll go to the second one here. That was last week. This is this week.
Hi everyone, I'm Laura Ingram in for Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. The phony war on women, that is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. Keeping with the theme of suffering on Good Friday, the White House hosted and boasted a Women in the Economy conference. Now this of course follows the relentless push by Democrats to gin up the contrived war on women election year narrative. The Obama campaign has made it clear that appealing to working women is a key part of the president's re-election strategy. The administration confab showcased familiar Obama boosters and election year feminists, including conservatives such as Obama pal Kathleen Parker. Now, this was a choreographed event for maximum political pandering, though the president tried his usual jujitsu.
Women are not some monolithic bloc. Women are not an interest group. You shouldn't be treated that way.
So why are you treating them that way, Mr. President? What happened to bringing people together rather than dividing them along gender, racial, and socioeconomic lines? And if you look at the facts, women are doing better than men. In her new book, The Richer Sex, Liza Mundy cites new research that shows in U.S. cities, single women in their 20s without children on average make more than men. And check this out, almost 40% of working wives out-earn their husbands. The next generation of women in America will make more than their male counterparts across all levels of employment. In 49 of the last 50 months, unemployment was lower for women than men, this according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and women receive roughly 3/5 of both bachelor's and master's degrees from American colleges and universities. And get this, it gets better. The national journal Heartland Monitor Group is reporting that 3/4 of women say they believe they can now advance as far as their talents will take them, regardless of their gender. And nearly as many report that they've not experienced discrimination at all in the workplace. president would like to take credit for all of this, but the fact is these gains began long before his inauguration. And we do not need to waste the taxpayers' money on transparently political events designed to reinforce the bogus notion that Democrats care more about women and Republicans don't. And that's the memo. Now,
so you're not calling because it's been.
So this is sort of what's been the narrative that's been going on in the news across both ABC, NBC, a lot of these different evening shows that bring you news and analysis that are something like this that just don't just simply report the headlines, but they go into they have these experts on, they have the panels on there. And I'll be bringing more of this as I get this more organized and working properly. As you see, there were still some technical glitches that I have to kind of work out. Once I get that sort of sorted out, I hope aiming for tomorrow night, we'll bring in some more of the video and more of so you can sort of see what I'm talking about, and we can start taking a look at a better comparison to and the three shows we're looking at is looking at Aaron Burnett, Anderson Cooper, and then on Fox, the O'Reilly Factor, and then on MSNBC we're going to look at Rachel Maddow, and you'll see the range in arguments, how one side presents the other side, and then we'll take a look at some of the problems that are facing both Republicans and the Democrats. Now, the Democrat problem is one that is taking a model it's kind of easy to see where it's going to end up, because all you have to do is look at Europe, and the Obama and the Social Democrats have taken on this sort of social left economic model that we see in Europe. If we look at China and India and ask what their economic model is essentially a Republican economic model. This is what they chose to do. And so the question is, where do you want to end up? Do you want to end up like India and China, economically speaking, or do you want to end up like Europe? These are the two particular groups, the two particular choices. The question is, why aren't the Republicans bringing this up as an argument? And the reason that they're not doing this has to do with the Republican xenophobic stance, particularly in regards to immigration. And they're talking about sort of cutting back immigration and not allowing quote unquote foreigners to come in and take American jobs. Well, the problem is that foreigners really aren't coming in and taking our jobs. They're simply doing a better job at being competitive, being American, than Americans are. I mean, Americans used to be this hard-working group of people who were able to do more or less anything and worked, for the most part, they did their best at their job. Now we have people living for the weekend. We have people who can't wait to get out of work. They really don't enjoy. They don't want to be there to do a good job. They don't have any form of loyalty or it's not even ambition. It's basically the attitude towards work that an immigrant would have. An immigrant, if you watch and if you've been in any immigrant neighborhood, you'll know that an immigrant will more often than not outwork and outperform his North American counterpart more often than not. And this is the problem when you interview and you talk to employers, even particularly on the small business side, as to who they would rather hire. They would rather hire an immigrant or someone from North America, like an American, and their choice almost every time is that they're going to hire an immigrant. And the reason they give you is that I can't get a good American worker in here. The Americans simply don't know how to work. They don't want to work. And because of this sort of attitude that, and this again is no longer just a black or white issue anymore. This is anyone who has a sort of a Western value or Western ideals where they've sort of taken up this sort of this intellectual stance that they have to have a certain job in order to be respected properly, and then even when they're on the job, they don't really want to be there. It's that they're always working for the weekend. They want to go out and party. Sometimes they're calling in drunk, or they they do as much as they possibly can to avoid the work rather than getting the work done. And this was shown that from some of the internet problems that the companies were showing that the number of people who were doing personal shopping online on eBay while at work was an epidemic problem all across these companies. They hire all these people to do this work, and rather than doing the work, what are they doing? They're on the internet surfing, going shopping, or just sort of fooling around. There's not really a lot of work being done, and and this becomes a problem when you're a company and you're trying to make money, and that money has to go back to shareholders, and your shareholders are your pension funds. So this affects anyone who, and this is where the irony comes in. If you're an American pension holder and you want to see your pension survive, so when you're old enough so that you can have something to retire on, then you want these companies to do well, and that means laying off American workers and hiring foreign workers. Why? Because if that company makes more money with a foreign worker, that means that more money is going into your pension fund because your pension fund holds these stocks. Then that's good for you, but in terms of your pension. But where it's bad for you is if you're an employee of that company, while your pension is going to do okay, because it's invested in these stocks, whether it's a 401k or an IRA, whatever it is, or a mutual fund, you're not going to do all right because you no longer have an income. So there's sort of a catch-22 here as to how you want to go about doing this. But this is it. The Republican problem is that they have an extremely xenophobic position right now. They really need to get rid of this. If they were able to get rid of the xenophobic position, they'd be able to use the examples of India and China as a good or positive direction for a Republican style economic policy. Where if they could have done this and they aren't doing this, pointing to Europe and saying, well, this is Obama's plan is Europe's economic plan, and we can see where that's going to end up, and that's ending up with Greece defaulting, with Spain in the same situation. And the question is, do you want to end up? Does the United States want to end up in the same economic condition that Greece is in? And if the answer is no, then you've got to do what India and China has done, and that means following a Republican economic model. But again, this argument isn't being brought out. It's not being sort of laid out properly. And Obama says that his route is the best route, that he's going to stick there. And the argument and the rhetoric is that they're simply going to tax millionaires, and that they're going to promote women and so on and so forth, as we saw in that video there. But I know personally from people that I know in the United States that there are elderly women who are concerned now because Obama is not going after the millionaire, because once there should be an asterisk after it, because it depends on how the IRS defines a millionaire. It depends on who they go after, and they're going after people basically who are in the bracket range of $200,000 a year on up. And this is a number of people, and this isn't the net $2,000 a month. This is gross $2,000 a month, $2,000 a year. And I know a number of elderly people who are in their pension and they're sick. They've got they've got cancers and so on and so forth, and they're being put upon by the Obama healthcare plan, by their healthcare plan, which includes uh, their cancer treatments and the treatments for their various illnesses, are now all of a sudden labeled Cadillac insurance policies, and they're being taxed. Not only are their insurance policies being taxed, but now they're in their in their retirement years, they're facing taxation under this new tax policy that's only supposed to affect millionaires. Yeah, this person is clearly not a millionaire. But the thing is, if you lump together the entire uh, retirement fund that the person has, yeah, they're a millionaire because that's what their retirement fund is. But when you pass out all that over the number of years, what they're going to have to live on, then all of a sudden they're not millionaires. If you have $1 million in your pension fund, and you're now classified, and you will be classified in the United States as a millionaire, if you meet that out over 10 years, that's only $100,000 a year to live off of. Some people, depending on their economic stance that they're leaving the workforce in, they can't live off that. So they're going to have to sell their house. They're going to have to sell their cars. They're going to have to sell a large chunk of their properties, of what they accumulate and work for the rest of their life, in order to pay this so-called millionaire's tax. And this isn't a theory. This is actually happening. These are people that I actually know that are happening, that are concerned for this. People who have worked all their life, who saved every dime, who worked very hard to save their money so that they could have a comfortable retirement, are now worried and concerned because now they are past this millionaire mark, and they're being told and being warned by the IRS that they're going to come after them for these particular for their this so-called millionaire's tax. So this millionaire's tax is not going to hit just the average person who's making $200,000 a year on up. It's going to affect anybody with a pension plan that is $1 million and over for their retirement, and that means anybody who plans to retire, who has a good retirement account, they're going to get hit. So you can see a lot of pensioners, a lot of people who at least can afford it, getting hit by the taxes. And now they're going to get hit this year, and they're going to get hit worse next year when the health care plan really comes into full effect. And the real cost for the Obamacare plan is going to start hitting. And they're saying that, it's the Republicans waging war on women, on all these different groups. Well, look, who's doing this? Who's suffering here? Look at what's going on in Chicago. The number of the blacks unemployed in Chicago, and O'Reilly had a feature on what was going on, the black on black violence in Chicago, and it's enormous. There's a significant problem there, and it's not being addressed by anybody. And the thing is, while we can criticize Obama for creating a lot of the problem in Chicago with the black on black violence, by sort of locking, because when you take away tax cuts, these tax cuts and loopholes that are in the tax law can be used by anybody, and it's often how a lot of people, when they start off poor, they use these tax loopholes to climb the ladder of success. They're the rungs on the ladder of economic success. And by eliminating these loopholes, you're eliminating people who are lower down on the ladder from climbing up the economic ladder. So what happens is that Obama, in these laws that we've seen in Chicago, these sort of social left laws that are supposedly humanitarian, have locked people in the ghetto. I mean, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and take a look by state by state, and area by area, which states are Republican, which states are Democrat. And then as I present them to you, you tell me which areas you would rather live in. Because I know for a fact that a lot of the upscale neighborhoods are more often than not Republican in terms of their behavior, in terms of the way their laws are, and that the more Democrat areas are more of the urban areas, who are the poor, and the often this is where you see the ghettos are. And the question is, where do you want to live? Do you want to live in a more liberal Democrat neighborhood, which is more urban and has a higher crime rate, or do you want to live in something that's more suburban, that's more Republican, and has a higher economic standing? And the thing is, it's no accident that the suburban and rural areas are more conservative, where you're doing better, and no, there's no accident that the urban areas, which are primarily Democrat, are doing worse, because this is the same dynamic between the economic difference between China and what's going on in Europe can be seen in the same difference between the Democrat urban areas, which are significantly poorer, and the wealthier suburban and rural areas. And so this dynamic, again, should be out there with the Republicans. It should be being mentioned, but it's not. It's not being mentioned at all by the Republicans. I don't know why it's not being mentioned, why it's not being pushed forward, but it's not. And the thing is that this is where you have people like Olympia Snow, where she from Maine, saying, "Oh, I can't handle this anymore. I'm going to retire because the bipartisanship in the Senate is so bad. I can't get anything done." Well, the thing is that that's not necessarily true, because if you were a Republican American, and this is a proper American, and you believed in the ideal of individuality, and that an individual can get up and do anything they want, there's no reason why a senator has to do things through the government, particularly if you're a Republican. You can go down the private route and get things done on your own, and then turn back to the government and say, "Hey, look, this was done privately. We don't need to fund this anymore through the government, because this is being done and has been done privately." But unless we have this sort of stepping up of Republicans and business people in the Republican community to show that all the social programs that the Democrats want done can be done privately and done at better privately, then the social Democrats are always going to have the arguments, "Oh, these poor people need to be taken care of, and in the process, we need to tax you so that we can take care of these poor people," even though this is not the reality. Under the social left tax program, this tax and spend program, is the people on the bottom, is the poor people who get hurt the worst. Because what happens is, as they attack the rich, as they attack the people who own the business, your corporations, they in turn pass that cost on to the consumer. So this is where, when you're looking at inflation, you're asking yourself why prices are going up the way they go up. A large chunk of the cost of a price, a large chunk of the inflation, one is your the labor cost, and then two, taxes. These are the two main factors: are taxes and labor costs. You want to reduce your inflation, you need to reduce your taxes, and you need to reduce your unit labor costs. Don't do that, then your costs are still going to go up, up, and up, and up. And because they go up times profit, the average consumer, particularly down at the bottom, will never catch up. You will never have the average worker being able to keep up with inflation, because the average worker's salary is included in the price of inflation. As the worker's salary goes up, the price of whatever he's paying for in terms of what he wants to bring home goes up times profit. So he's part of the inflation equation. He cannot remove himself from this inflation equation, and the only option he has is to open up and start learning about the open economics of the free market economic system, because that's how he's going to raise himself out of where he is. But that's it. Again, these options aren't being presented by any of the Republicans to the lower economically placed or the lower economically ranked people. They're sort of being left to their own. They're being left to fail. And unfortunately, as this happens, the Democrats do have a good sales strategy, where they're able to go out and sell people, oh, poverty isn't your fault. It's somebody else's fault. You need to blame these other people over here, and we are going to here to help you with your poverty. But the thing is that because the government always needs these impoverished people, particularly the social left needs these impoverished people, there is no incentive to resolve the problem, because as soon as the problem is resolved, then these government people aren't needed anymore. So you want to keep yourself employed in your government agency, then you spend as much money as you possibly can, and then every year, oh, the problem somehow is getting worse. We need more money. And that's how you keep yourself employed as a government employee. And this is what happens across, this is what's happening in Greece, this is what's happening across Europe, and as more and more enterprises, private enterprises in Europe, becomes government controlled, becomes government owned, more and more this value of we need to spend every dime so that we can ask for more money later on passes on through company after company after company, because they realize that all they have to do is go back to the government and say, we need more money in order to pay for everything. But the problem is, there's a point in time where so much money is borrowed, so much money is consumed and owed, that it's impossible for the taxpayer to ever pay it back. And this is the situation that we're in now. We're in this situation where we have gone beyond the point where the taxpayer can actually pay back any amount of the tax that is, any amount of the debt is owed, is being forced on it. And what's happening now is the United States and a lot of Europe, the Europeans, are being turned into tax slaves. They're going to have to work off this debt, and the government's going to enforce that people work off this debt. And the thing is, it's not just affecting this whole thing that Obama says, oh, it's just affecting millionaires. This is a lie. This is an out-and-out lie, and I've seen it personally, and I can say with a very certain degree, because I've seen it personally, that Obama is lying about what's going to happen with the economy, and what's already occurring with the economy. So what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll look at more of what's going on in the news for the second half. We'll go into foreign affairs and talk about the situation in Syria. See you in the second half.